Hey everyone, finally I've managed to get onto Facebook. I don't know what's going wrong there. So today I am talking about caffeine and the impact it can have on your sleep. I'm sure this is not new news to you that caffeine impacts your sleep, but you might not understand why it does that. So one of the things that it's a stimulant, so that it's causing a stress reaction in the body, so that's why it makes you feel alert. So it does all the things that stress does to you, like finds stores of sugar and dumps them in the bloodstream, helps your body get oxygen around the blood, oxygen around the body, and produces adrenaline and cortisol. So one of the impacts of high cortisol, whether it's caused through caffeine or through stress, is that it blocks the body's production of melatonin. And melatonin is a sleep hormone. So we don't want any kind of interruption of the production of melatonin. And by having caffeine throughout the day, you're raising your levels of cortisol, which then prevents your body from making melatonin. So that is one of the connections with sleep. They've also learned that it impacts the body clock. So your body clock is kind of an internal mechanism that knows when it's time to wake up and when it's time to go to sleep. And caffeine has a negative impact on that. There's also the issue of how your body can cope with caffeine. So we are either fast or slow metabolizers of caffeine. And if we're fast metabolizers, the liver copes with it really well, processes it, and all of the negative impacts, or you might experience them as positive impacts of caffeine, are kind of a very short-lived thing in your body. If you're a slow metabolizer of caffeine, then the impact or the effects of caffeine linger for much longer. And this might make you feel jittery, it might make you feel a bit hyperactive, and it could have a serious impact on your sleep. So you could be a slow metabolizer and not know it. I know I'm a slow metabolizer because I've done genetic testing and I've tested those particular genes to see how good or bad I am at metabolizing caffeine. And I am a slow metabolizer. And it wasn't a surprise. I know that I couldn't drink caffeine late in the day. So you might want to find out whether you're fast or slow metabolizer. I do DNA testing, and the test I use, DNA Fit, looks at a nice kind of 45 genes that can tell you a lot about your ability to detoxify, whether you're susceptible to carbohydrates, in terms of weight gain, how likely you are to be able to absorb vitamin D, lots and lots of different useful information from that test. So what can you do if you are struggling to sleep, but you are a lover of caffeine? So the first thing to acknowledge is that it is very addictive. So if you want to cut down on caffeine, you need to do it really, really slowly. Otherwise you have withdrawal effects, and then you're more likely to go back to start drinking it again because you feel so dreadful. So that is not necessary. You don't have to go through that. My suggestion would be cut down very, very slowly. So say you have 4 cups of coffee a day at the moment. By this time next week, aim to be having 3. And then a week later, aim to be having 2. And another thing is trying to make your last cup of coffee earlier in the day. So try and have a really big gap between when you want to go to sleep and the last time you had coffee. You might not want to go without coffee, so you could try decaffeinated coffee. I would encourage you to go for an ethical brand though. So when they decaffeinate coffee, they use chemicals, and these chemicals aren't great for us. So you need to use a naturally decaffeinated coffee. So a brand like Clipper would be a good choice if you want to switch to decaf. Sorry, that's my phone. Other things you could do is find some alternatives that you enjoy that are relaxing. So chamomile tea is really relaxing. A lot of the tea brands do a nighttime tea that's a kind of combination of different herbs. So it could be using things like hops or valerian or lemon balm, as well as chamomile, and something can be really nice, relaxing. So, start trying to drink those later in the day. And then something that has been proven to have soporific qualities is milk. So, you know, we used to have milky drinks when we were children, and this was why, because they do encourage sleep. So think about your consumption of caffeine and how good you might feel if you cut down on it. You might think that you've always managed to get away with it, but now, because of all the increased anxiety because of the coronavirus, your stress levels might be a bit higher, and that extra kind of layer of caffeine on top is just not something you can cope with anymore. So it might be worth thinking about cutting down on caffeine. And a really interesting fact I read yesterday about melatonin is they think, I've just turned that off and it's still tinging. They now think that one of the reasons that children have been less susceptible to the coronavirus is because their production of melatonin is naturally higher. So anything we can do to increase our kind of output or creation of melatonin should be encouraged. So again, trying to introduce some stress reduction so that your body's in a position to produce more melatonin because it's not being blocked by cortisol. So that's just a thought. Yes, so if you enjoyed this, please share it on your Facebook page so your friends can see it. And I've been asked tomorrow to do a Q&A, so I might do that if there's anybody on who wants to ask me any questions. So thanks for listening, and I'll see you tomorrow at 3, hopefully with no issues getting onto Facebook Live tomorrow. Thanks then, bye.